and sit right here, Joy.
Alright, so I want to start by thanking everybody for coming tonight, for taking time out of your day to make your health a priority. I know that this time of year there's a lot going on between the weather and the holidays and the shopping, and I won't talk about more things to stress you out because it's a stress class. But again, thank you guys for coming. I don't want to waste your time. I plan on getting you guys out of here in 30 minutes so you can get back to the rest of your evenings, dinners, families, things like that, and I want you to get something valuable out of this experience. So I'm going to start by asking everybody, who here has ever been stressed?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. What are some of the daily causes of stress? Work, okay. You have a couple works. Anything else? Kids. That's my mother. She's not allowed to say kids. Maybe the middle and the youngest one, not the oldest. Certainly not. Anything else?
Money problems.
Money problems? Yeah, so I mean, just talking about all the stress, I'm noticing some people are starting to punch the shoulders and the energy in the room is getting a little bit more stressed out. And I mean, immediately just by taking this position, you're putting pressure on the neck, pressure on the shoulder, pressure on the muscles. Can you see immediately how chiropractic can actually help deal with the effects of stress? And I'm sure that some of you have heard how stress can make you sick, and it can even make chronic diseases worse and can either be caused by or made worse by stress. So how does this happen? In our body, we have something called homeostasis. Homeostasis is a balance between everything in your body. It's making sure that everything stays in this kind of constant normal. So make sure that your body has the proper temperature, adequate blood flow, oxygen levels, things like that. Stress is anything that knocks us out of that balance. So we have two systems in our body. We have the sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight or flight, and we have our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest or our feed and breathe. So sympathetic is something that you have an emergency, you need to get away immediately. And it's sort of there for emergencies, for traumas, for immediate responses, immediate actions. And parasympathetic is sort of when you're resting, you're trying to build long-term projects, growing a baby, kids that are getting older, things like that, setting you up for the long term. It's more optimistic. These two systems, they can cancel each other out. So your sympathetic will speed up your heart rate, where your parasympathetic will slow down your heart rate. And you don't want to activate them at the same time because it's sort of like putting your foot on the gas and on the brakes at the same time. Doesn't make much sense. With stress, it is essential for your optimal health that these two systems, they balance each other out. You don't want too much of one, not enough of another. You want to keep them in the middle. And excessive stress, that's going to stimulate the sympathetic nervous system at the expense of the parasympathetic nervous system. So I was reading this book. It's called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And it talks a lot about stress because everything in our body happens for a reason. You know, nothing is made by accident. So we don't have this stress response because we're stressed at work or because we didn't get the newest designer clothes or, so-and-so didn't call you. That's not what the stress is for. It's more primal needs, like there's a predator that's going to eat me and I need to get away. There's not enough water, I need to go find hydration. That is what this was initially made for. So our stressors, like I said, it's deadlines, it's traffic, it's money, relationships. But zebras or primal humans, that's more the physical injury, the starvation, predators. Which one sounds worse? Probably get eaten by a lion is a little bit worse than being stuck in traffic. Although traffic is very frustrating, I definitely agree with that. But we're more likely to get ulcers than zebras, and zebras are the ones that are dealing with technically the worst stressors. So why does this happen? When zebras get stressed, say you have a zebra, it's sitting in a field, it's happy, it's eating, it's just grazing, not really worrying about anything, and then it sees a lion. And the zebra's like, I need to get away from this lion. So it elicits the stress response. It is going to elicit things that are needed for survival. So So we need muscle, we need energy, so we can get away from that lion. So you mobilize energy, which means we're taking sugars, simple proteins, simple fats, simple forms of energy. We're going to take them from other storage sites, bring them into our blood, and give it to the area that needs the energy to run away. It is going to stop long-term building projects. It's going to turn off growth and things like that. Digestion is halted, reproduction, tissue repair, because if, say, a tornado is bearing down on your house, you're not going to worry about building it up. Same thing in the body. If there's some sort of trauma or some sort of enemy nearby, you're not going to be worried about growing bigger and stronger. You're going to worry about getting away from that enemy and then worry about it. Also, things like immunity. Immunity is great at fighting diseases, stopping cancer that might affect you days, weeks, months down the line, but in that moment where you need to get away, it's not worried about what might happen next week. It's worried about the here and the now. Your perception of pain can be blunted. So if the zebra rolls its ankle trying to run away from that lion, it's not like, oh, ow, this hurts. It's get me out of here. So everything is for survival, which is a good thing when you're trying to get away from a predator. However, it lets that zebra get away, and then the zebra forgets about the lion. It doesn't sit there and it's like, when's the lion going to come back? Oh my goodness, I'm so stressed out. Once it gets away from the immediate danger, and it goes back to its life and doesn't stress. And that's why that response is there in the moment that it needs it. It allows it to get away, and then when the threat is gone, it turns it off. Because what we do is we sit around and we brew about it, and we're not using that mobilization of energy. We're turning off those long-term projects, and when you're stressing about it on a daily basis, that's just going to accumulate and accumulate, and we're going to go into some of the effects of it in a little bit. But that's why the zebras, they let it go, where we like to kind of focus and brood, and that psychological stress, which actually brings me to my next point, because there are 3 different types of stress. The stresses, we have an acute physical stress. That's like the zebra, like I was talking about. It has a lion, it's attacking, it needs to get away now. Or on the other flip side, it could be the lion, which is starving, searching for a meal. That's something that's immediate and needs to happen right now. They're extremely stressful events. They demand immediate physiological adaptations if you want to leave. And the body is amazing with dealing with these acute stressors. Then there is a chronic physical stress. This happens more in third world countries. It's more like your crops are destroyed and you don't have food, so every day you have to walk 25 miles to get food. Or there's a drought, and again, you have to go miles, and your body is having this long-term stress. It's not an immediate, it's something that builds up over time. And our body's stress response for that is reasonably good with dealing with it. And then we have the psychological and social disruptions. And this is more, like I said, relationships, traffic problems, social security, things that are kind of all in our head. And it's not saying that those aren't important, and they do deserve some sort of energy, but at some point you need to let it go because you can't focus on it all day. Or that stress response is going to build up in your body and you're not going to do anything to release it. And our body is amazing at having our thoughts affect our body to the impact a lot of us don't understand. And that's why a lot of people can say that our thoughts make us sick. And it's for that same reason, because the stress thoughts, they'll manifest physically in our body. So in all 3 of these instances, our body turns on the stress response. And that's regardless of the stressor, like I've been saying. So they were saying that a grand chess master, during the chess games, he is actually able to put metabolic demands on his body that are similar to athletes at the peak of their competition just by what he's going on in his brain. Because, I mean, most of you guys understand what chess is. You're not moving a lot. But the stress that he's doing psychologically is the same as that athlete that's sprinting around the track, just from his brain. So a lot of us don't take into consideration how serious our brain is and how it affects our body. And like I said, our body is amazing with dealing with these in the short-term instances. Hans Selye, he is the godfather of stress. In 1930s, he was studying the hormonal communication in the body. He was a very, very smart scientist, but he wasn't great in his execution of these scientific experiments. He wanted to inject rats with an extract from the ovaries daily, because he wanted to see if this ovary, or this hormonal extract had an impact on the body. But he would get the rats, he'd try to inject them, he'd miss, they'd run around the lab, he'd chase them, eventually catch them, inject them, maybe drop them the next day. So it wasn't a controlled environment because there was a lot of chasing, a lot of finding. And after months, these rats had these peptic ulcers, and he said, oh, it must be from the extract. So he ran a control group because, like I said, he was smart, just wasn't good in his execution. So he injected the same rats with a saline solution, which means it's pretty much just water. There's no hormones in it. But he did the same thing where he couldn't make it. He'd drop them, chase them around, and those rats had the same exact ulcers. So he realized it couldn't have been from the hormone because those that were getting injected with the saline had the same ulcers. It had to have been from the stress of them being chased around the lab for a couple hours before they actually got injected. So to test it, he took some more rats, he put some on the roof in the winter, he put some in the boiler room, he exposed some to vigorous exercises, and regardless of the stressors, all of those rats got the ulcers. So he realized maybe it's the stress that was causing them. So again, you can see how just psychological, being stressed out from being chased, can cause a physical manifestation in your body. So he came up with two concepts that the body, one, has a remarkably similar set of responses to different array of stresses, and two, that if the stresses go on for too long, they will make you sick. So what are these long-term effects of chronic stress? Think back to the zebra. You're mobilizing energy. You're taking sugars into the blood cells. If you're not able to utilize that blood cells, then your blood sugar goes up, and that's pretty much what diabetes is. So diabetes is a high risk of it. It stops rebuilding projects, so it can stunt growth. It can inhibit your immunity, so you're more likely to catch a cold or catch some sort of sickness. It decreases your pain sensation, and it affects your mental awareness as well. You will fatigue easier because you're taking all of this extra energy and putting it in blood, so you're not having the storages build up in your body. And it puts a lot of extra pressure on your heart because your heart's ready to go, it's ready to go, but you never actually go. So your heart has this extra demand building up, but you're not actually utilizing it. So some of the warnings of the stress warning signs, this is really small, I apologize. For those of you that can't read it, cognitive, there are memory problems, inability to concentrate, poor judgment, seeing only the negative, anxious or racing thoughts, constant worrying. Emotional, moodiness, irritability or short temper, agitation, inability to relax, feeling overwhelmed, a sense of loneliness and isolation, depression or general unhappiness. Physical can be aches and pains, diarrhea or constipation, nausea or dizziness, chest pain, rapid heartbeat, and frequent colds. And then behavioral, there is eating more or less, sleeping too much or too little, isolating yourself from others, procrastinating or neglecting responsibilities, using alcohol, cigarettes, other drugs to relax, or nervous habits like nail-biting pacing. And I would go out on a limb and say that pretty much everyone on here has had at least one of those. Because like I said, we all have some sort of stress in our lives, it's just how we go along with dealing with it. So if you're not able to deal with these stresses and you have them long term, it turns into a chronic stress. And those effects, pain of any kind, heart disease, digestive problems, sleep problems, depression, weight problems, autoimmune diseases, skin conditions such as eczema. And this is our body's way to try to maintain that homeostasis or maintain that balance. And maintaining this balance doesn't always come cheap because repairing one system often comes at the expense of another. So think of it as two elephants on a seesaw. Or, well, focus on two little kids on a seesaw. You have two little first graders, we'll say. Pretty easy to balance each other out, right? And that's us, normal homeostasis. Start to build up this stress. So that first grader turns into a 30-year-old, which turns into an elephant. Gets a lot bigger. So on the other side, the parasympathetic system has to work harder to balance out, so that side will also grow, 30-year-old elephant. Now, how easy is it for the elephants to balance themselves out? It's gonna take a lot of work, and that's what's happening to your body, is the bigger you build up the sympathetic side, the bigger the parasympathetic side needs to balance out, and then the body is just like, whoa, how do I balance this? And everything kind of goes around. So how do you combat stress? The less that your body has to worry about diet, exercise, nutrition, proper nervous system flow, the more that it can focus on the nervous system, or the important issues. Well, the nervous system is important, but we'll keep that clear through chiropractic. So you guys are all in good shape here, so I like that. But that'll help keep down the size of the elephants on the seesaw and keep them down to those little first graders so it's easier to balance. Now, the problem in our society is we want a quick fix now. We want to take that magic pill. We want that simple answer. We don't want to, do 45 minutes of exercise a day and eat the salads. But honestly, that's the best thing you can do. The more things that you do to set yourself up to win, the easier you can set that balance up. And this just always makes me laugh because I'm learning how to relax, doctor, but I want to relax better and faster. I want to be on the cutting edge of relaxation. And how many people are like that? I mean, it'd be so easy, right? But unfortunately, that's not how it works. So, some of the guidelines are, there's the 4 A's to follow. Avoid. Not all stress can be avoided, but when it can, avoiding the situation is great. Learning how to say no, distinguishing between what you should do, between what you must do. Steering clear of people or situations that stress you out. Not always possible. Sometimes, if you can do it though, try to avoid those situations. If the evening news makes you anxious, don't watch the news. If traffic has you tense, take that longer route. I will always take the longer route than going through the busy traffic lane or the busy traffic grid because I know traffic stresses me out. So you have to know what your triggers are and how to avoid them. You can alter the situation. If you can't avoid it, alter it. This is more how you communicate in your daily life. You need to be more assertive, deal with problem head on, address the situation. If there's a roommate that's stressing you out, let them know what's going on. Instead of bottling up your feelings, express them to that person. Be more willing to compromise, meet people halfway, and manage your time better. Alter the situation. Or, if you can't do those, you can adapt to the stressor. When you can't change the stressor, try changing yourself. Reframe your problems, reframe your mind, focus the mind. If a task at work has you stressed, focus on the aspects of your job that you do like. I love my job, so I don't have to worry about that. Nothing ever stresses me out, right, Dr. Sam?
Never.
No, but seriously, always look at the big picture. Is this something that's really worth getting stressed out about? And adjust your standards, because perfectionism is a major source of avoidable stress. You need to set reasonable standards. Nobody, including every single one of you and myself, nobody is perfect, as much as we would love to be. And focus on the positive. And then lastly, accept. Accept the things you can't change. Don't try to control the uncontrollable. There's a lot of things in life that are out of our control. There will always be stresses in life you can't do anything about. Just learn to accept the inevitable rather than just trying to fight the situation, because you're setting yourself up to lose, unfortunately. Learn to forgive, because holding on to resentment, it's going to hurt you the most. And learn to accept that no one, including you, is ever perfect. Last Wednesday, I came into work. I know it was a snowstorm, but I wanted to get some work done. And, well, I've been describing it as a snowball hit my car, but then I realized that the insurance company called me and go like, so a snowball hit your car? I'm like, it was a little bit more intense than that, so it's gone to an ice boulder. An ice boulder hit my car. A snowplow drove by me, shot this ice boulder. It was like this big, this wide. I think it's gotten bigger every time I've told the story, but it shot it out in front of my car. I was in between a guardrail on a bridge and another car. I had no choice except to drive through it, and it broke my bumper. Something was hanging on the ground, something was puncturing the tire. Dr. Sam was so nice to help me fix my car so at least I could drive it home. I was not happy. When he saw me in the office, it was about 5 minutes later. But then, an hour after, I realized, sitting here brewing about it, it's not going to fix my car. It's not going to make the situation go away. I couldn't avoid the situation. There was nothing I could do. I couldn't alter the situation. It had already happened. There was nothing I could do to alter it. I could adapt and I could accept. So I sat around and I started thinking about it, and I'm like, I'm not hurt, baby's not hurt. It's a car, it's not that much damage. My brother was visiting from Washington State, and I started thinking, I'm like, if this didn't happen, I would have driven to Bow to see my brother. I could have gotten into a major car accident, and I could have seriously gotten hurt, or the baby could have gotten hurt. This could have saved my life. So I reframed my way of thinking, and I'm like, you know what? Even though this was a really negative situation, I don't know. It could have saved my life, and it could have been the most positive thing that's happened to me all year. You don't know. So just reframing over frame of mind, all of a sudden I wasn't so upset about it anymore. So there's always a bright side. It's just finding that bright side and looking for it. So what else can you do to help combat stress? There's some daily habits that we can do. Relaxation time is huge. I know that everyone is busy, especially this time of year, but just taking, even if it's just 10 minutes to yourself to relax, such meditation, yoga, it takes your mind off of the million things you need to do and reframes it on focusing on your breathing or focusing on your movement or something that's more positive. They actually did a study in the Journal of Psychoneuroendocrinology, and they studied people that were into the practice of meditation, and they did a one-day intensive of mindfulness meditation versus a day of people that were untrained that just did quiet, non-meditative activities. And after 8 hours, the meditators had a range of genetic and molecular differences, and that included turning on gene regulatory machinery and reduced inflammatory genes in their body, which helped them recover faster from stress. And that was just from meditating. They weren't moving, they weren't doing anything, just mindfulness meditation. So, again, the power of the mind is huge. Exercise regularly. I mean, how many people feel better about, maybe not before the exercise, but after you exercise, you feel so much better, and especially with stress. Stress is gearing you up to go, and if you're never going, exercise is a way to get that extra energy out, to utilize what your body is setting you up for. And that same, a different journal, the Journal of Neuroscience, showed that when those mice were allowed to exercise regularly and they experienced a stressor, their brain cells exhibited a spike in activity of the neurons that shut off the excitement in the hippocampus, which is shown to regulate anxiety. So basically, they're exposed to a stressor, but when the ones that were exercising shut down the anxiety at a level that the other ones weren't. So exercise will directly affect how you deal with stress. Proper nutrition. A well-nourished body is much better able to cope with stress. Certain foods, they will innately stress the body, such as alcohol, caffeine. You want to avoid those. Others can make digestion hard, so you want to eat a lot of healthy, fresh, whole foods, and plenty of water. Also, adrenaline from the stress, like I was talking about, raises blood sugar, so you want to make sure you're eating a lot of smaller meals throughout the day, so you're not having that extra spike in blood sugar on top of the spike in the blood sugar from the stress. And then, if that doesn't work, you can always use some herbal supplements, such as licorice root, aloe vera, lemongrass, kava kava, mint, dandelion. Those will help aid with digestion, make everything flow smoother. And then certainly getting proper sleep, because how many people feel irritable after a bad night of sleep? Sleep is important. Feeling tired can increase your stress by making you think irrationally. And adequate sleep is essential to having the brain function properly. There was one study that showed that one complete night of sleep deprivation, so if you're in school, you pull an all-nighter, you work the overnight shift, you don't get to sleep during the day, is as impairing in a stimulated driving test as a legally intoxicating blood alcohol level. So don't take for granted sleep. Sleep is really, really important. And then lastly, a positive mental attitude, which we already talked about. So when it comes to stress and dealing with stress, it's really up to you and what works for you. Because what works for me isn't going to work for you, isn't going to work for you, isn't going to work for you. Everyone is different. If sitting in your yard in a Batman suit is what works for you, then go ahead and do that. Whatever makes you laugh, watching a funny clip, listening to your favorite song, whatever works. This past week there was a lot going on, and I told you about my car story on Wednesday. It was quite a stressful day. I was very soon after that very humbled. My significant other, Nick, he has a best friend, and nobody had heard from him in a couple days, so they asked him to go check on him. He hadn't showed up to work, he wasn't answering his phone, so he went to visit him, and he was 47, he was a little bit older, and he showed up and he was dead in his bed of a heart attack. And it was really upsetting. It's still very upsetting to me. But Nick and I have been talking, and he's like, how does this happen? He's 47. He's not old. He's young. It was his best friend. It was like a father figure. It hit him really hard. And this guy Ross, he was very active. He had an active job. He ate decently healthy. Probably could have eaten a little healthier. He didn't get adjusted. But he was going through a stressful time. He was going through a divorce. He was, at risk of losing his kids. And Nick and I were talking, and he's like, what could I have done? What could he have done? And, sometimes it's hard. You never know. Is there something I could have done? Am I on borderline of having a heart attack like this 47-year-old did? I mean, who would have thought a 47-year-old with massive, if you looked at him, he was in shape, he was a thin guy, he had muscle, like you wouldn't have expected it. And we spent a lot of time talking, and I'm like, Nick, this is why it is so important to me that you take care of yourself. I make sure he eats healthy, he gets adjusted, I make sure he gets his sleep. And one of the reasons that I do what I do is because I don't want to lose my mom or my dad or Nick, and I want myself and Nick to grow old with this baby when this baby comes in hopefully less than 20 days. But seriously, like, I don't want this kid to lose one of us when they're 17, because Ross had a 17-year-old, and this kid is not going to have a dad anymore. And it is so important for me, and that's why I do what I do, because I want to grow old with the people that I love. And not only that, I want the community to grow healthier. So I am so passionate about this, getting that education out there and inspiring people, because I don't know, maybe no one told Ross. Maybe he didn't know about chiropractic. Maybe he didn't know to eat healthy. I mean, it seems obvious to me, but I live in this world. Maybe no one told him. You never know what you say and what you do today is going to affect the lives of those tomorrow. You don't know. So, I mean, this is a very sobering, it's a very close topic to me, but that's what I want you to do, because don't you want to grow old with your family? Don't you want to grow old for your kids, or have your parents grow old with you? I mean, if you knew that was going to happen tomorrow, what would you do that was different today? What would you tell them? You can't always change someone and make them care, but you can at least try, and you can at least give them that information. And that's just what I'm asking you guys to do, because I don't want that story to happen to anybody in this room. So please even if you just invite someone to a class, share the information with them. If they want Dr. Sam or myself, we can call them, they can come in, it doesn't cost anything to get checked. I just don't want that story to happen to anyone else, because I care and love about every single one of you, and I want you guys to grow old and happy with those that you love as well. So, on that beautiful side, I hope all of you guys have a wonderful evening, and thank you so much for coming.
Just make sure everybody's signed in, because you do get put into a wrap.